There we go. Yo.
You don't see me.
Oh. Well, guys, if you think you see Joe right now, you don't. You're hallucinating. Welcome to Don't
That's
Worry Wednesday.
right.
Welcome to Don't Worry Wednesday.
Hallucinogens.
That's right. You guys rub your eyes a little bit and
Whoa.
maybe clear your brain. Do some
I
breath
see.
exercises.
Whoa.
What do you see, Joe?
I see Joe people.
Joe people? I see Joe Mama.
Oh man. Boom.
uh, did anyone ever say that joke to you?
I see your mama.
Joe Mama?
Joe mom. Oh my gosh. Yep.
Yep. Okay. I I figured.
Yep. That's a timeless one too.
Yeah.
That one just
Right.
sticks. That's
Mm-hmm.
been going on for years
Ever
and years
since.
and years.
Yeah.
And it still happens. Joe mama.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Welcome to Don't Worry Wednesday, guys. This is a show where we talk about whatever's on your mind, whatever you're going through, your problems and your struggles in life, or even just things you want to talk about, like, deep subjects about like what you've realized about yourself, or you want us to maybe give her some perspective on something like that. Anything's game. And yeah, if you want to submit a topic, you can go to don'tworrywednesday.com. You just go to don'tworrywednesday.com and click the submit a topic button.
That's right. You can go there.
As easy as that. We aren't professional psychologists or psychiatrists or anything along those lines, but we can give you our best. From our experiences in life and our perspectives, and just basically be a friend along your journey. A lot of times, we know what to do when we're going through struggles, but encouragement can go a long way, and a little perspective as well. So, yeah, we aim to sort of walk beside you for a moment and give you a little bit of wisdom from our lives and hope that it helps you in yours. Simple as that. And so, thank you all for being here. How's everyone doing today? How you guys feeling? Did anyone dance recently? If you did, what song did you dance to? Yeah. How you doing, Joe?
Fantastic. How are you?
Doing great. Have you danced recently?
I did. I danced a little bit in the corner and nobody noticed.
Nice. What did you dance to in the corner?
I have songs going in my head. It was a Joe original.
Joe original. Nice. Hey, that's fair. I mean, I bop to my own songs all the time when I'm writing. Recently, I opened up a file and I said, "What's this song? How'd this get in here?" And I clicked on it and I opened it up in my music program and I was like, "Ooh, this is nice. I like this." I was like, I don't remember writing this, but I really like it. So I just bop into that. That was great.
It's pretty funny. It's always fun when you're recording, especially vocals, to really get into the song and dance and do all that kind of stuff. I have a little bit of trouble doing that on my own. I try, but it went really well when I recorded vocals for Step Aside. I think it was our last release. And I was over at Steve's studio and he was there and he just kind of kept egging me on. And then before I knew it, I'm just like I'm like picturing myself on the stage and I'm like all over the place. It was super fun.
That's awesome. That sounds super fun. Yeah, I mean, when you can get into it, I have a song I never released, but like back in, I think 2014 or something like that, 2015, I started writing this song, and I have the lyrics, and it's like you can hear I get into it. Like you can hear, like, because when you get into the mental frame, and then the mental frame of this song was like a soldier coming home from war, or actually not coming back yet, but he wants to come back, sort of thing. And during the song, there's like this sounds like I'm crying almost, but singing at the same time, which is a hard thing to do because when you cry and you sing at the same time, you go off key. And like you sort of need to go off key to make it sound like a legitimate cry. But anyways, it turned out really well, and it was like, wow, I got into the moment there. That turned out really awesome. It's a good take, But Yeah, that's awesome, Joe. But yeah, it seems like we got a lot of responses. Yeah, or yeah, that's great. Yansai says I just constantly dance to everything. That's perfect.
Mm.
Yeah. um, I think that's great. Crying stream? You want a Ryan crying stream? Are you crazy? I don't think I could do that. It would be a very short stream because I can't cry for very long. Like I do, I'm a one teardrop kind of guy.
You could do it.
Yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
guess I could try. I could try to do my best voice acting, but it wouldn't be anything more beyond that because I'm a one tier kind of guy. It's hard for me to get beyond one tier. Like,
You need to do a marathon 24-hour stream of Ryan crying. 24 hours.
is it gonna be just 1 second loop over and over for 24 hours?
I suppose it could be.
Yeah, because I feel like that's the only way that could happen. Wow. All right. Well, let's do this. Thank you all for being here. We're so excited. Don't Worry Wednesday is one of my favorite parts of the week. In fact, it's probably my favorite part of the week. I love doing Don't Worry Wednesday with you guys, and it's just great to be here. Hey, Manti, how's it going? Nice to see you here. Yeah. Oh, and Riku, nice. Wow, getting a lot of people in the chat. This is fantastic. But yeah, let's get the show on the road.
Let's do it.
All right. Are any of these that we have urgent topics? Let me look through them real quick. We have 2.
We have 2 with urgent check marks on them.
Yeah, we got 2 with urgent check marks. Marie is still here. Yeah, Marie. Yeah. You're here. Okay. So. Would you mind if we start with yours first? Let us know if you are still good and available for that. Wow. All right with me. Awesome. Well, let's do that then.
All right.
Go ahead and
let's do.
Let's do the do.
Do the do.
Let's see if I can get the topic on the screen.
I believe in you. You can do it.
Oh wow, this is a lengthy one, so bear with me. I'm not the fastest or most accurate reader, but if you give me some time, I'll get it done.
You're gonna do great, Ryan.
Yeah. If you want to read
along, I can feel it.
You can go ahead and check your screen. If you don't care, just close your eyes. This is from.
Yeah. I'm closing my eyes, starting right meow.
Right now. All right. This is from Marie. It's titled "Stressful Life," and it reads as follows: "Hi, Joe and Ryan." Sorry, that part is in caps. I was gonna put the the somber sound into it, but all of a sudden it was loud because of the caps. So I apologize. Hi, Joe and Ryan. It's been like what, 3 years since I've talked here. I used to be active back when I was 14 or 15, and now look at me. I'm 17, and my life has just gotten messier and more stressful, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure what type of topic this would be since I've been kind of a mess lately, but I guess the main issue is I need help getting my life back on track. I think the last time I submitted a post, I talked about taking care of my grandparents, my younger sister, and my mom, usually on my own. My living situation hasn't changed, but a lot of my life outside of my family life has. COVID happened, and my grandparents have become more dependent of me to step up more at home. I have more responsibilities to attend to, their medical and physical needs, along with getting mild/severe depression. I'm in my last year of high school now, too. I'm picking my university, and I'm struggling in my courses to meet the required grades. My depression and time spent on housework has given me less time to do my work. And on top of that, my depression makes me not want to do anything. It doesn't help that the career path my family is preparing me to take is not something I want. I don't have any say, though, to change it. Lastly, I left an old friend group of mine. I think I used to talk about how I struggled to make friends a lot. I struggled with socializing, etc. This year, I ended up leaving them because of how they used to treat me. And while I feel better, I did. Wait, hold on. Because how they used to treat me. And while I feel better, I've just felt really lonely. I don't have anyone to talk about my issues with, and my family has been increasingly mentally abusive towards me. I don't know. I feel like I'm just really lost. I said I would try better in high school. I would be more independent and focused on my wants more, but I didn't. And now that I have the ability to, I'm being pressured into other careers. Then there's my family and my schoolwork increasing, but my depression just makes me not want to do anything. I haven't been taking care of myself recently either, and the more I don't, the more my family makes fun of me for it. I think I've also gained an eating disorder, but I can't tell if I just don't want to eat or I'm just too tired every day to make something for myself anymore. Sorry if this topic is too sensitive/serious for this. Don't worry, it's not. You're good. I know I should go seek professional medical help, but this was the first place I thought to go to get help. Thought of to get help. Also, sorry I had to come back on a really sad note. I hope you're both doing well for yourselves and are in better care. Little Miss Fancy, Murray. Indeed. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Marie. It's hard not to call you Little Miss Fancy. By the way, I just still love that name. It's such a cute name, Little Miss Fancy. But yeah. It's. I mean, we're happy that you are looking after yourself enough to try to make an effort to make a difference in your life and become happier. You know, that's good. And we're happy that you're here with us. We're happy that you're here with us because you bring fun and nice, good vibes, and you're a really great and loving human. We've at least I've always experienced that with you, and you've always been very kind and fun and nice and joyful to be around. I'm sorry that things are so dark in your life, and I just want to say don't worry about it being too dark of a topic. That's what we're here for, you know, and we've all gone through struggles, you know. They're not all the same, but yeah, we've all been through darkness. And many of us are still stuck in it, and some of us go through it on a daily basis here and there. You know, the dark comes and then it goes, and that's our daily life. And so we're happy that you're here with us. We're happy that we can be a friend that can step alongside of you and say, hey, you know, here's some thoughts. Here's some encouraging tips, and we hope that we can see you see the best of yourself, and that we can see you grow and move beyond this. You know, darkness always requires us to make a breakthrough and grow in order to change it. It seems, at least most of the time. And that's not always easy, but it's worth doing. And so you're already taking that first step of, even if not going to see a mental help agency like a therapist or whatever, you're still taking steps forward. And that's the most important part. You know, that is the most important part. I mean, when you go see a therapist, their job is to get you to do that. And I mean, you're already doing that. So we hope that we can encourage you to keep on doing that. And so, yeah, thank you so much for the topic. There's a lot here to discuss. And yeah, I'm looking forward to just getting into it. So, I'm sure Joe has a lot of really good things to say. There's definitely some things I want to say right off the bat when I get my shot at this, but I want to give it over to Joe because Joe's been a good mentor to me in my life and has helped me through various things he doesn't even know about because he just is a great person to be around, and he's been really great, especially with my social life and so on. So I'm gonna give you the best of the best, and that's gonna be Joe. So here you are. Take it away.
Well, that's super kind of you, Ryan. Thank you, and thank you, Marie, for the topic.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really sorry. I'm sorry to hear that things have been a struggle and continue to be a struggle. And you're right. I would definitely look into seeking some kind of professional help, even if it's just a counselor, even a school counselor, somebody you can talk to that has a little bit of training in psychology and how how our minds work and how we can make heads or tails of things. Because sometimes we can just simply get overwhelmed. And it sounds to me with the sheer volume of things happening that there's a good chance that being overwhelmed might be contributing to the feelings that you're having, to the sadness, to the depression. It's very interesting. I watch how I operate, and I have a lot of trouble when I have too many things to do, too many things to focus on. Like there's the whole tiger with a trainer technique, like with where you would see a tiger trainer and he's got a chair in front of him, right? And he's holding this chair in front of this tiger. And the reason he's doing that is because there are four legs of the chair, and so it kind of stops the tiger, and they can't figure out which one to focus on, and so they kind of just freeze. And what that does is that then gives the trainer an opportunity to work with the tiger because it's no longer being aggressive toward them. It's kind of frozen in that moment. And we as humans can have the same exact thing happen to us when we have too many things, pressing on us for our attention or our time. And it's always so interesting because, I go through this all the time where I've got so many things to work on, so many different things to focus on, lots of different things to figure out, and I should be able to prioritize, but sometimes I can't. And even then, like sometimes when there's so many things, even just prioritizing them seems like another thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's another leg of the chair. Like the
Yeah,
task to prioritize the tasks is yet another thing to pull my focus away, right? And then I have to ultimately recognize that, okay, that's actually the priority. My number one priority is to prioritize these things, right? And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And but as humans, we can only focus on so many things at once. Multitasking is a huge buzzword, or at least it used to be. And I remember my martial arts instructor would always say, there's no such thing as multitasking. There's only switch tasking. And so like he says, you can't really do. And the point is that, without focus, we're not going to be as effective. And I think deep down we know that. And so then when we get hit with a whole bunch of different things at once, it can stop us in our tracks, and then we just kind of sit there, and then we're not doing anything. And so then our thoughts come in and we start to beat ourselves. Well, this is what I do. I start to beat myself up that I'm not doing these things. And maybe you can relate to this, maybe not, but like I look at all the stuff I need to do, and I look at all the different things that I have, on my plate, and all the different things I'm responsible for, and I'm not doing any of them because there's too many for me to focus on. And so then I start beating myself up, and then I'm like, ah, and then I'm just stopped. So then what do you do? Well, I talk to my therapist every week, and she has helped me, to just be able to talk through some of this stuff, because sometimes when we even just the idea of bringing it out, talking about it with another person, even if they don't, offer me any advice, just the sheer act of spilling it all out verbally or in a text or whatever, that one task can help ease the load a little bit, because then it's all out. I'm like, okay, I've expressed this. Cool. Now I can relax and I can maybe try to take one thing at a time. So, like Ryan said, there are a lot of different things in here, and this is a stressful time. It's your last year of high school, so that already is a busy year. You've got college, or university that you're choosing, and that that can be a task in and of itself, and it can bring anxiety if there's certain schools that maybe you want to go to and you're wondering, am I going to be accepted or not? I've applied or auditioned or whatever. Like my senior year was a lot of auditions, because I was going to major in music, and so I had auditions at a whole bunch of different colleges, and got accepted at some, got denied at some, and that's, you kind of play the numbers game there, and pick what you think is going to be the best option. I can absolutely relate to what you're saying here, that it doesn't help that the career path your family is preparing you to take is not something that you want, but you don't have any say to change it. And that is a really, really tough spot to be in. I remember being in that spot. I know lots of other people who have also been in that spot. Some people tend to work through it better than others. And some people are able to compartmentalize that whole thing and then still press forward in the career. Even though they didn't choose it, they make it work. In my case, I lasted for about a semester and a half at college on this track that I didn't want to be on. And then I had a nervous breakdown, ended up in therapy. There was so much cognitive dissonance, which is like, okay, the things that I'm envisioning for my life aren't matching up with the path I'm on for my life. And this disarray that's being caused, I couldn't handle it anymore. I tried it for months, and some people are able to do it for years and be okay. I was not one of those. So I would say if this is something that's stressing you out, you may have to eventually find a way to stand up for what you actually want to do, and say, like this path, because here's the thing, university costs money unless you get a full ride, and that's kind of rare. I've known some people who've gotten full ride scholarships to different colleges or universities, but I know that's kind of rare. And so it's going to be expensive. And so then what do you do? Like, I have this thought in my mind, like, okay, if this is not a path that I want to be on, why am I throwing all of this money at this path that I don't want to be on, that I don't see coming to a good place in my life, and maybe we go into debt, we go into student debt sometimes, which can be just astronomical. And you don't get to write that off in a bankruptcy, just so you know, at least in the United States. I don't know where you are. But in the United States, even if you file for bankruptcy, that debt does not get forgiven. You get to keep that debt, until you pay it off. You can defer it for a really, really long time, and that's okay. But, eventually you are still responsible for it. And so the question becomes, am I going to stay on this path? Am I going to follow this? Am I going to throw all this money, go into debt? Maybe it's my family, my parents, maybe there's a college fund that my grandparents have set up, maybe something, who knows? Am I going to use all these resources on a path that I'm not interested in? And here's the thing, Marie, you're a person. You're a person with your own desires, with your own, talents and skills and different paths that are in front of you and things that maybe you want to do. And, for someone else to drive you into something, I struggle with that. And I see it happen all the time. I see it happen all the time. My kids go to a private school, and in that culture, in this private school, there's a lot of money there. There's a lot of people that, have quite a bit of money. And so there are a lot of this stereotypical idea of, like, I want my kid to be a doctor just like me, or I want my kid to be a lawyer just like me. And, parents kind of guide their kids in their own footsteps, in the parents' footsteps. And they don't necessarily take the time to listen to their kids to see what is it that the kids want to do. And I see this happen, you know, and it bothers me. I remember talking to my son, it was just me and my oldest son. We were at a Culver's restaurant and we were sitting down and eating our food. And I remember telling him, we were talking about this dynamic a little bit. And I said, I might be a really, really weird parent. I might not be normal, because when I look at you, I'm talking to my son. I'm like, when I look at you, I don't see somebody that I want to make into any particular thing. I'm interested, as your father, in discovering who it is that you're supposed to be, based on your skills, your talents, all what you're into, because in order to succeed in anything, we have to be driven to do it. And if we don't want to go into that field, then our drive is going to be all messed up. Our drive is going to be artificial. And my mom was a college professor, and she could always tell the students that were in the field they wanted to be in versus the students that were only there because that's what their guidance counselor had said they ought to do, or that's what an assessment test in high school said, this is the field that you're best disposed for, or, or parents wanting to, push their kids into a certain field. And she could always tell the difference. And the kids, the students that had the drive, that this was the area they wanted to be in, would always do very well in the class. They would work hard. They would have the drive. And the rest of them that were just kind of there to be like, well, this is what people are telling me I ought to do. They didn't have the drive. And a lot of them would fail because my mom taught human anatomy and physiology, and that is a huge, there's so much content in that class. She taught a lot of nursing and like rad tech people and all kinds of stuff, right? So anyway, I know I've kind of zeroed in on this career path thing, but to me, I just remember that moment of finally having enough. I was already struggling with depression. I was already like, I didn't feel like there was any point to me going to class. I didn't, I was like, this is stupid. This isn't what I want to do. This isn't what I feel like I'm built to do. So, I finally just kind of gave up. And then because of the pressure, it finally mounted to the point where I just couldn't handle it mentally anymore. I had a nervous breakdown. I ended up in the hospital. I was having, anxiety attacks. And when I have an anxiety attack, I generally freeze. A lot of times people will talk about an anxiety attack that's fight or flight. But they've now discovered that it's freeze, fight, or flight. We go into mode where we're either going to run away, we're either going to fight somebody, or we just stop. and I was basically a shell of a human being, and I was catatonic, if you know what I mean. Like I was unresponsive. I was conscious somewhat, like I kind of knew what was going on. It was a really weird experience, but I just could not respond. I shut down. And that's an extreme case. You know, I know that doesn't happen for everybody, because I know people who have gone through that path and gotten the job and the career that they were guided or told that they should be into. Sometimes it works out. Sometimes they make a career out of it. They learn to like it. They learn to enjoy it. They find things in there that they enjoy, or they're just like, well, this is just my job, and that's what I do from 9 to 5. And then I have the rest of my life outside of that. And they they do those personal things outside of their work time, and they're really good at separating that out. I wasn't good at that. So I had to find a profession that I would fit into, or at least that I could just do while I pursued my passion. And it was really weird for a while. But anyway, okay. Do we have more stuff in the chat? I don't know. It's moving pretty fast over there, looks like.
Yeah.
So but all right.
Well, we don't have any updates necessarily, just heard Marie's thanking people and thanking you.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, cool. So I admire you that you're taking care of your grandparents. You're doing what you can to help in that situation, even among all this pressure. And when you're depressed, I know you can feel absolutely powerless. Absolutely powerless. And you try and do some work, but then you can't focus, and then it can just be completely debilitating. I know that when I've struggled with depression, and I've struggled with it a fair amount, that there are days when I just can't really do much of anything. I try, and then I work for a little while, and I'm like, yep, okay, that's all I can do today. And then I go lay down, or that's all I can do. And then I need to take a nap, or, I need to just stop and do something else. I remember it got to the point where it was when I was at the height of a whole bunch of stuff with my upcoming divorce. I was, in the process of getting a divorce, and I was basically incapacitated. I couldn't really do much of anything. And so I'm sitting there trying to work, trying to do whatever, and I just couldn't. And then finally one day, it was like this huge victory for me to get up, get in my car, go to like the gas station and buy some chips and a pop. And that was it. And I was like, I got myself up and I got myself over, and I did that. And and I was like, okay, that's a win for today. I got up and I did something, anything. And sometimes it can be that extreme. Sometimes it can be that hard where you just do not feel like you have the energy to move. The weird thing about that is, when you're in that frame of mind, the best thing you can do is something. Take some kind of action, because when you start, even if it's just the simplest action, you start to build momentum. To go from 0 to barely moving is like the hardest step. But once you're barely moving, it's a lot easier to build on that little bit of motion and get more motion going. So even if it's just, okay, I got up, I went and I washed my face. Might be that simple. There's a psychology, there's this book about like, hey, first thing you do, make your bed every day, and then you're going to be ultra successful. It's like, no, not exactly that. But I understand the principle. When you're frozen and you feel like you can't do anything, something as simple as making your bed can start that movement, can start to build momentum, because it's something that you accomplish. You can visibly see the results, Like, okay, I had an unmade bed. Now my bed is made. Look, I did something, and you can see the result of you doing it. And you're like, okay, cool. I did something. And you can pat yourself on the back and then you can, start doing some other things. But a lot of times what I have to do is set my goals really small, especially when I'm overwhelmed like this. And I have to say to myself, all right, I'm going to read one page of my study material for school or whatever it is. Just one page. Or I'm going to do one problem. I'm only going to commit to the smallest possible thing. I was struggling with depression, and I'm a music producer. And so I would play this trick on myself where I'd be like, all right, the only thing I'm going to put on my to-do list is open Cubase. Cubase is our production software that we use for making music, right? All I'm going to do is I'm going to open up Cubase on my computer and I'm going to just look at it. And that to me was a win. But I know myself well enough that, okay, I'm going to open this. I'm going to open a project and I'm going to look at it. And then before I know it, okay, then I'm like, well, I might as well hit play and listen to what I have. And then, but that's all I'm going to commit to. And I would take it one step at a time. I'm only going to commit to this one step. I'm going to play, and then I'm going to play the song. I'm going to listen to it. And if that's all I have the capacity for, then I still win. But each time I would take one more little step, the next little step got easier. The next little step got easier. And it just progressed on like that. So with all the things that you have going on here, I understand what it's like to feel alone, to feel lonely. I'm so sorry. And I hope that some of what I'm saying is making sense. Maybe can help you to relax a little bit and understand, you know what, it's going to be okay. No matter what you end up going through, it's going to be okay. And all of this that's happening, while it's terrible, it's painful, and it hurts, and it's stressful, and it can feel crushing. All of this adds to the unique drama that your life is. If you start looking, you can look at your life as a movie. And if a movie was, hey, Joe got up and he went to work every day and he came home and he watched TV, and that was the whole movie, like day after day of that, it'd be kind of a boring movie, right? But the more challenges we face, the more we have to struggle, the more we, get shoved into this discomfort and into this, hurt area, this painful area that we can be in, the more depth we have as a person, the more depth of character we have, the more we've experienced, and ultimately the more we can help other people that are then going through the same thing. Now, one of the challenges I see as an adult, and I see lots of parents also do this, where they look at their kids and they'll have this attitude of, oh, you think it's bad now, you're in high school, that's like the time of your life, like, oh, you think it's bad now, just wait till you get a job, just wait till you get into college, just wait till you graduate from college and have a job and have a family, and you got to handle all these stressors that I have to handle now, da 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 da, right? And on and on. And I can't stand that mentality, because all of us are at different places with our capacity to handle things. And when we're on overload, when we've hit our limit, that's it. That's our limit. Regardless of what limit I think might be higher or lower or whatever, we all grow at different rates and we all handle different sets of things. And, when we hit full capacity of the things we can handle, there's a feeling of overwhelmed, of stress, of maybe sadness, maybe anger, maybe all kinds of stuff, right? All that stuff is the same whether I'm at full capacity as, a 29-year-old or at full capacity as a 13-year-old. Full capacity is full capacity, and the feelings that are there are the same. So it's like we need to have a little bit of compassion for people when they might be struggling with something that's really, really hard for them in that moment. And to belittle somebody by saying, "Oh, you think that's bad? Wait till you get to where I am." Like that's ridiculous. Because full capacity hurts just the same. And so I don't know. I'm sorry. There are a lot of things that bother me about the world. You're going to hear them. But anyway, that's what I'm going to start with. I'm going to turn it over to Ryan and see what things he wants to jump on with this topic. Because like you said, there's a lot here that we can talk about. And there's a lot that hopefully we can help with. But what I really want you to understand is no matter what it is that you're going through, no matter it is, all these things that are happening, it's temporary. It is going to come to an end. There is going to come a point in time when you don't have to deal with this anymore. It's temporary. It will pass. Sometimes time is the only thing that will make it pass. And that's frustrating because it's like, you're telling me there's nothing I can do. I just have to wait. Sometimes that's the case. And so you have to find things to do to pass the time of waiting for this thing to pass. And that can be really hard sometimes, but it will pass. You will be on the other side of this at some point. And, however you get through it, I'm hoping that, you can find a way to ease the pressure off of yourself a little bit, because only then will you be able to focus on those things and get them accomplished. So anyway, that's what I have to start with. Ryan, it's all yours now. So
all right. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for starting with all that, Joe. Just of course, as we both said, now there's a lot to be talked about here, and obviously we don't necessarily have the full time to spend with you to really dive super deep into everything, but we can spend time on some things and help push you hopefully in the right direction. You just said recently in the chat here, you said they're worried about me, your parents. They're worried about me not making enough money to take care of their house. My mom is expecting me to let her live with me and take care of her like she's taking care of my grandparents.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's a lot of pressure. That's a lot of pressure, and it's very natural to be stressed. It would be expected to be stressed out over that. What do you call that? That sort of future. That's a lot of stress. And so I'm gonna do my best to maybe help you handle some of that stress. I think there's a lot of wrong things going on. And you should address those things as wrong and try your best to make them right. You can't decide for other people whether they're going to be right or wrong. So all you can do is be right yourself, right? And also, sometimes you have to recognize that the best way to love someone is to help them find where they're wrong. And that can even mean desert them so that they can find that. And that's a tough lesson to learn. What you're currently experiencing is an oppressive relationship with your family. From all that I can tell, from everything that I've read, it sounds to me like you're very oppressed. And not only are you okay, you're oppressed, and along with oppression, there's almost always a joint sin, if you will. Here, the people that are oppressive are usually also incredibly reliant on you for their survival. And along with that comes this sense of, I think complacency is the wrong word, but we're gonna go with it. It's a sense of complacency where because they believe that everyone's bought into the idea, themselves and you, that you're going to be the one to take care of them, they stop trying and start mocking. They stop trying themselves and they become ultra critical of the people around them who aren't working. And the reason for that is because they recognize that they're not working or they're not trying hard enough, right? And so then that pressure that's on them to try harder and to work harder becomes a state of depression. In order to solve that or resolve that, their mind goes to, let's be defensive and say, hey, no, these other people aren't good either. So let's point that out to them so that it's not so harmful when I point that out to myself. And I'm not saying necessarily, Marie, that is the situation you're in, but it sounds a lot like that's the situation you're in. And it's a situation I've seen many times, and it's a situation I went through in my childhood, and my mom helped us get out of, and then back into, and then back out of. Because I had two different, one dad and then a stepdad that did that to our family. And then I've also seen friends go through that, and it's rough. It's incredibly rough. Yeah. So I say all of that to help you identify a few things. One of the reasons you're stressed is because you're being put in a situation you shouldn't be in. And the people putting you in that situation are repressing you, are oppressing you, are sort of just leaning on you unnecessarily, right? I've said this on stream many times before, but you haven't been here for a while, and you might recognize this idea, but when you allow other people to decide how you feel, right? This is a completely different topic, but I'm going to go here anyways. Like, if you rely on other people to decide whether you're happy or not in life, right? What are these people saying about me behind my back? You know, or how do these other people feel about me? You know, when you ask those questions and you start questioning yourself, you know, that sort of thing, you usually end up pretty depressed. But and the reason is because you can't rely on other people to decide how you feel about yourself, because that's always going to end up in a failure, right? Because other people aren't always thinking about you and trying to figure out how are they going to make your day, right? Yeah, most of your days are going to end up being sad. And so now, here's the thing about that. It's not just irresponsible. It's wrong to put that kind of pressure on other people, right? It's not their responsibility to make you happy, right? And so it's wrong to say to other people, you have to make me happy, right? Because it's just not there. It's not even in their capacity to. It's not up to them whether you're happy or not. You have no control, over that. That's them, right? And so my point of saying that is that's the scenario it seems to me that you're in. They're expecting you to make them happy. And so now all of this responsibility that you can't control, but they're putting the responsibility on you anyways. It's not just that, but it's even their finances, right? It's like, hey, we're counting on you to make our finances work. And it's like, okay, But that's in the future, and I can't control that. Also, that puts a lot of pressure on me, and I have to take on this certain thing that you're telling me I have to do, and I don't even know if that's gonna work, and there's no guarantee. It's not something you have control over. So basically, I think a lot of your stress is coming from there's a lot of things that you're being told. You're being not necessarily told by words, perhaps by words, but one way or another, you're being told that you are the one that controls whether everybody's happy, whether everybody's taken care of, whether the finances are good, and that's all in your boat. When the truth is you have no control over a lot of these things. And so the only thing you find yourself doing is letting everybody down all the time. Because the future's undecided, you're worried, you don't think you're up for the task. And not only all of that, but your history shows that people aren't just generally happy, even though you've tried, right? And we learn from our, all we have in life to go off of generally is our own experiences. And in your experiences, I don't even have to know about them just to know that you haven't, like, no matter how hard you've tried, when people are leaning on you to make them happy, you haven't been able to live up to that.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's just not even possible. But people do that.
Whereas, yeah, it's impossible to live up to that.
It's impossible to live up to that. But yeah, and it's okay, Marie. It's okay you missed part of it. You can listen to it after the show whenever you have time. Or whenever you have time. But yeah, we hope that we keep on encouraging you, and that you can get you can get through this with some peace of mind. But yeah, so I say all of this. I'm pointing out the issues. I'm pointing out the issues so you can start working through them. You said, I'm the only one in my family that isn't disabled or mentally ill in their eyes. So they rely on me a lot because I'm the only one who's okay, I guess. Okay. That's somewhat understandable. Again, here's something to say too. People don't know where they're wrong. They just know that something is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a lot of times the human condition. We don't know what's wrong or why it's wrong. We just know that there is something wrong, and that's why we're here and we're not happy or whatever, right? And so I'm not trying to blame them necessarily. It's not like they made all of these choices after thinking about it for many hours and figuring out how do I solve my problems, and then ending up, okay, I know what's going to solve my problems. I'll put it all on this young girl. Excuse me. But that's just where they ended up. And so one of the most loving things you can do for someone is to help them through their problems. And that's not always easy, and sometimes it's tough. Sometimes it's called tough love. And I know that you're not necessarily in the position where you can just say, all right, I'm out. Because, I mean, obviously you're still in your last year of high school. Mm-hmm. But even if you weren't, I understand you would feel horrible. And part of that feeling is justified, and part of it isn't. I want to say also, what you're doing is very good. What you're doing is loving, it's kind, it's good, right? What you have been doing is out of your heart and has been very good. Even when you detested it, even when you're like, I don't want to do that today, but you do it anyways, right? That's real love. That's awesome. So all of this is a great testament to your love, your capacity to love, your capacity to do things for others that are great sacrifices. It's a fantastic display of love. And I want to commend you for that. And I want to say that's beautiful. That's beautiful, Marie. And I think that what you're doing is a wonderful, kind thing. But it should be wonderful and kind without the unnecessary oppressive behaviors, right?
Mm-hmm.
What I've found in my own experiences and experiences of many others, when they get into the predicament that I'm assuming that you're in, with oppressive nature, with reliances, with complacency, with there's just that kind of environment. And usually there is a mental disorder attached to all of that. That's not uncommon. Whether it be they stopped aging because they got into alcohol at the age of 16 and they just not with the program. Mm-hmm. Or it could be narcissism or any psychopathy, anything, right? I've seen a lot of different stuff that ends up in this situation. And there usually is a mental facet, a lack of self-awareness to some degree, right? But not always, but usually there is some sort of lack of self-awareness. So anyways, I was going to say is usually when people are in that scenario, they're in that scenario for their whole life. Unless they decide they have the strength to leave. And what that does is it forces the other person to start acting again. It puts the other person in a panic. They hate you. And they blame you for everything. But they get their stuff together. They start taking care of themselves again. And they're generally happier. Because you've stopped them from making their happiness dependent on you. And they start making their happiness dependent upon themselves, which is something they can actually do something about. And that's really a really, really scary, terrifying proposition I'm making. And I understand that. And I understand that you've got people you need to take care of, and that makes it incredibly difficult. I understand that, you're not just dealing with regular people, you're dealing with people who are disabled and either mentally or physically. And I understand the terrifying nature and how it can look so unloving to back out of that and say, it's your deal now. When what you're doing is out of your compassion, right? You have compassion, you have pity. And pity and compassion, these are great attributes to have. But there's a line in the Bible from Jesus himself, and that's a rather important thing. So what's he got to say? He says, "Don't cast pearls before swine." And that's a really weird statement, because it's like, well, okay, ultimately the statement is, don't attempt to help people who are unwilling to help themselves. You don't have to spend time trying to add value to something where they don't care about that value. And if someone is oppressing you so that you can take care of them, they haven't figured out the value of you. Joe said it eloquently when he was talking about his kid and how he, wants to see how his kid, who he becomes, what his potential is, what he's engineered for, what his mind likes to navigate towards, and to discover that along with his child. And that's a beautiful thing. When someone when someone relies on you for everything, they have stopped seeing that kind of, they have stopped seeing potential in you. They have stopped seeing the value in you because they only see you as what sustains them. And they forget about you. That you are, the things you're passionate about, the things that you want to become, the things that, even especially the things that you do in the moment, they become blind to it. And that's a terrible, horrifying thing to recognize. And it's really sad, and I say I don't really cry, but it makes me want to cry. Like right now I'm holding back some tears because I recognize how painful that is, Marie. And I recognize how painful this topic and me talking about this can be. And it's like, it's not their fault. It's not their fault. I'm not blaming them. I'm just telling you how things are. And I want to help you. Sincerely. I don't want to give you the advice that only makes you feel good for a couple of minutes until the next offense.
Mm-hmm.
There is so much value to you. There's so much greatness in you. And it's really hard when you get shut down over and over and over for it. And it gets disguised as a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
You get shut down for you trying to be you, and it gets shut down in such a way that's manipulative. It gets shut down in such a way that is, no, you are supposed to do the right thing, not whatever that is you. You're supposed to take care of us. These are good things. And it just shuts you down. And it's like, well then, but is it not a good thing? Okay. It is a good thing to take care of other people, and everything you've done is good.
Mm-hmm.
But it might not be good for them. And that's the scary thing. Because what do you do then? What do you just leave them and say, good luck? You guys, good luck taking care of yourself? It's like, well, you immediately cast that out into the future and you're like, well, if I do that, well, then chances are they'll lose their house. What then? They end up on the street. They can't get a job. They're disabled, blah, blah, blah. I'll say this. Most of the time your fears aren't what happened, right?
That's very true.
You live in Canada. I don't know the situation there perfectly well, but I know you guys have free healthcare. If you are disabled, the government will help take care of you to some degree. And it's a decent amount of money. It's actually a decent amount of money. You can live that way. You just have to stop buying stupid things that you don't need. And stop eating out all the time. Maybe start cooking your own food, which will make you feel better about yourself.
Especially if it's ramen noodles.
Especially if it's ramen noodles, because that always makes you feel good because it's nice and warm and soupy.
And you didn't spend much money on it, which
and you
is
didn't
great.
spend much money on it. That's it. That makes you feel good. So I get that that's an incredibly fearful proposition, but it's a good one. It's better than what you're going through right now. And I don't mean it's better for you. I mean it's better for them. And that's true. And that's scary. And it's like, well, how can I know? I'm just some random dude on the internet. I don't know everything that's going on. You're right. I don't know everything that's going on. But I know people. I've seen a lot of them. And I've seen this happen many times. And I've seen over and over and over and over and over. Don't make me hungry while I'm crying. I want therapy food. I'm sorry. And there's people in this chat that can attest to everything I'm saying. They've been through it too, with people who maybe are they're mentally disabled or whatever, but they don't see your value. And so they take advantage of you.
Mm.
And it's ployed. It's ployed in such a way that looks like you're doing a good thing and you need to take care of them or they'll fall apart. And so now it's all on you, and that's the position you're in. It's going to be where you're at for the rest of your life. And the people in the chat can also tell you, probably, that stays that way forever until you decide that maybe you love them enough that you're willing to let them free. Or you're done with it enough that you're willing to free yourself. Because what you've got right now, it is a 2-part bondage. You're bound to them out of obligation. And they're bound to you out of necessity. But if you set yourself free, or you set them free, that bondage can come to a close. And it's going to be hard for a little while. And then it's going to be the greatest years of your life. And you won't regret it. It's hard. It's worth it. Because we're supposed to be free. I mean, human beings. It's a beautiful thing. And it's worth fighting for. And it's worth facing your fears for. And it's worth letting other people face their fears for. It's so worth letting other people face their fears for. And I know that's hard. I know you might not take me up on my word for it. I know that at the end of all this, you might just keep on being where you're at. And that's okay. But I just want you to be happy. And I want them to be happy too. When you have a child, your job in life, when you have that child, is not to make that child successful. It's not your job. Your job, when you have a child, is to prepare them for the world so they can be themselves within it and be the gift, the fullness of the gift that they have within themselves to the world. And at some point, you have to let that child go out into the world so they can be the greatest gift to the world they could ever be. And if you never let them go, if you decide for them everything, if you decide for them their path in life, if you never let them go, you rob them of their identity and their ability to be the greatest value that they can be. A parent has to let the child go so that that child can give to the world the amazingness of themselves. And the parent, yes, their job is to raise that child so they have good morals. Yeah. Good ethics, good attitudes, good everything that they can put into that child that is good. Yeah. And all of that might amount to success. But it might not be success in the eyes that you have. And so, and that's true for a child because of love. It's also true for your friends. I'm not saying give up your friends or say, oh, you can go leave me now. But you can't get the idea that any of that's up to you. Rather, like, you can't hold on to your friendship and say, don't leave me. You have to be willing to have, like, the most fruitful friendships. You have to be willing to say, I love you. I'm not going to cling to you. I'm going to let you be who you are meant to be. And the same thing is true for our parents. There comes a time when we have to say, hey, mom, hey, dad, you know, I want the best for you. And it's not this. It's not this. But anyhow, we can get in the way of ourselves and we can get in the way of each other if we cling too tightly.
Mm-hmm.
And so we need to be able to let go sometimes. It's true for material goods too, right? Like, that's obvious. When you cling too tight to material goods, what happens? You become obsessed. You become financially broken. You're just not happy. Because you have to keep on buying new material goods. And then you have a hard time letting them go, and it's just like, if you can just let go of them and you're free and you're happy. But because you think your happiness is dependent upon those material goods, you have to hold all of them at once, and it's just too much, and it's hard. You can't be happy unless you're able to let go. So I know I've talked for quite a while, and I know I've kind of put a lot of pressure on you. Here I'm going to take a moment to just kind of give you a tip. I'm going to take a moment to give you a tip to help you work through all of this. Because what I've said is kind of intense, and there's a lot of you, and it would require a lot of you, and you're already being required more than you can handle. So here's some thoughts. Some concluding thoughts. One, you can see a therapist. I think that's a great idea. You mentioned that yourself. Joe mentioned it. I think it's a good idea. Number two, you don't have to move slow, but you can. You can take things slow, but you don't have to. But you can take things slow. And number three, I know this is going to be the hardest one. It might even be harder than all the other things I suggested, but it's necessary. You need to spend some time with yourself and repair that relationship with yourself.
That's the hardest advice.
That is the hardest advice. But it is truly the hardest. Yeah. You need to enter into your inner self, basically find some time alone, and you're going to start talking. When you find yourself alone, a lot of times you're just going to immediately find yourself talking. What are you talking about? What are the things on your mind? Talk to that person. And open up a conversation, open up some dialogue. And maybe you already do this, and if you do, that's awesome. But they've got a lot in them that needs to come out and scream. They've got a lot in them that might need to come out in tears. They've got a lot in them that needs to come out in joy that's been repressed as well. And all of those things, they're hard to go through. But you need to open up that dialogue and repair that relationship. Because right now it seems like you don't have time for that kind of relationship with yourself. But you're the person you're with all the time. And it's you that decides your attitude when you go to help your grandparents. It's you that decides your attitude when it comes to working on stuff for high school. It's you that decides your attitude for how you see accounting or how you see art. it's you who decides your attitude for all of these things. And if you don't talk to yourself, if you don't have a good relationship with yourself, it's going to be really hard. And so I just want to, I know, sorry it talks so many sad and depressing things, but I hope you know that what I'm doing is I'm trying to encourage you. I'm bringing the darkness to the light, because that's what's needed here. And you are an incredible source of light. You are an incredible source of light. And we don't want to hide that. We want to open that light up to the world. And I really want to do that, because you're a wonderful person. So, yeah, there's a lot more that could be talked about with self-dialogue. And Mieledo is speaking about that as well. So we can talk about that maybe on another topic. Yeah. If you're being oppressed, then it's not fair to the world that the light that you can bring is being oppressed and being confined in this small area and being told what to do and what you're, everything being put on your plate, including the general attitude and happiness of other people around you, which you can't even control, and so on and so forth. So I just want to say all those things and try to bring some of that darkness into light. And that's hard. It's hard to deal with, but I think that, well, I know you can get through it. I know you can make good decisions, and I know you can make hard decisions. And you've already proven that with how you've stuck through what you're in, right? For this long. And there's definitely a lot that I don't know, and I recognize that. But wisdom is wisdom, truth is truth, and here we are. So, sorry, there's so much I can't get to, but that's as far as I can go for now. So I'm gonna give it back over, Jojo. Do you have anything you want to add to that? I mean, obviously, again, there's so much to this topic. So
there is, and we've talked for a while, and we run the risk. The more we talk about, the less likely,
you'll be able to absorb everything.
Exactly. It's like the same thing I was talking about with focus, right? Like when we have too many points to try and figure out, we lose focus, we freeze, and I don't want to pile a ton of stuff on you, but I do want to say, it makes logical sense to me that you would be experiencing depression in this situation. The recipe is there for it. I mean, you're looking at, you have lots of extra stress because of where you're at in your high school career. There's that stress. Then there's this, expectation of you to do something that you're not feeling like that you're built for, or something that you're not really wanting to do, but you're expected to do it. And then I see in here, Marie, you said, not to argue with you, Ryan, but I also do it because I really, really love my family. That's I know great. They sound really horrible, but deep down, I know they're incredible people. And that's another thing, right? Yeah. Like that throws another thing in there, because now you feel compelled. You don't really have the freedom to choose, because you're compelled by not it may not even necessarily be all them that's trying to force you to do this, but because you love them, you feel in your heart that the right thing to do is to help and to do these things that they want and all this kind of stuff, right? But sometimes the thing that somebody wants is not what's best for them. And to love somebody is to want what's best for them. It's to desire the best for them. And I know myself well enough to know that a lot of times when I want something, it's not the best for me. Right? But anyway, that's another topic we could get into. But I just wanted to encourage you, because all this that you're going through, depression is almost a foregone conclusion with all this stuff going on. Like, you feel this pressure, you feel this frustration, and deep down that frustration can conjure up anger, but then we don't feel like the anger is legitimate, and so we squash it, and then the anger then freezes and becomes depression. That's kind of how things had gotten for me. And when I talked to my therapist, I first started seeing my therapist, I had done this for so long where I had, gone through situations that were frustrating and made me upset, right? But I didn't feel like I had a license to be upset. Like I didn't have the right to be upset because I had to do these things and it was the right thing to do. And, I told these people that I was going to do this for them and whatnot. And so I felt like all this anger, all this frustration was not legitimate for me to feel. And so I just would squash it. And then eventually that all catches up. Took me about, okay, let's see. From the time I noticed that I was doing this, and I actually thought it was like really cool. I was like, look at how I don't get angry. Look at how this stuff just slides right off my back. Look at how great I am. I was kind of prideful about it because I was like, I'm really good at handling my anger because I just don't get mad. Right? But all these things were still happening and they were still frustrating me. It's just that I would squash it before I'd gotten so into the habit of squashing it. I remember when that happened and it all kind of came to a head like 8 years later was when it all finally came spilling out. And I couldn't handle it anymore. And the depression just rocked my world. And still I'm working through like all this stuff, right? It's crazy. But it's normal for you to feel depression in this situation. That's another reason why I would encourage you to see a therapist. Because they're going to be able to help guide you through the process of healing and through doing this. Now, you talked about you are the only okay person in your family, that everybody else is, disabled or mentally ill or whatever, right? And I had an argument with my therapist about this because I'm like, well, yeah, I'm mentally ill because I was like, I'm depressed, like that's a mental illness in my book. To me, in my book, something that I'm mentally unwell is mentally ill, right? But we just had a difference of definition because in her expertise, mental illness is something that's an actual functioning problem with your brain, right? It's not severe depression or anxiety. It's like, like more like bipolar disorder or, something where there's a brain functionality problem. Like your brain itself isn't functioning properly. That, in her eyes, is the definition of mental illness. To me, it's like, hey, my mind feels sick. I'm mentally ill, right? So anyway, if you're depressed, then it's not okay. Now, it's okay to be not okay. I've heard that a lot of times, right? It's a kind of a meme now, right? Like, it's okay to be not okay. But it's true. Because we all go through times where we're not okay and things are not okay. And I also want to address the eating thing. You talk about possibly having an eating disorder. But you said, I can't tell if it's just I don't want to eat or I'm just too tired every day to make something for myself anymore. That's normal too. When we're faced with lots of pressure, with lots of depression, we don't want to eat. I remember going through this and it turned into a sticking point with Ryan's brother and sister-in-law. Cause like I didn't eat anything, but like I'd have like a spoonful of peanut butter once in a while. And it went like that for like 2.5 weeks where I didn't eat anything. I didn't eat any food other than that, and it was basically a spoonful of peanut butter so I could take vitamins, And it's not necessarily all that healthy, but it's just I didn't want to eat because of the depression, because of all this stuff, right? I just did not want to eat. And like they'd try and make me eat. And I'm like, don't try to make me eat. I don't want to eat, like, but you need to eat. I'm like, I'm going to be fine. I've got fat stores on me, my body's going to consume my fat stores. It's going to be just fine. You're like, right? Like, but now here's the thing. Not eating can also affect our mood. The amount of sleep we get can affect our mood. The amount of water we drink can affect our mood. All these different things can have an impact on how we feel. And so I would think, okay, here's where you're at right now. Okay, baseline, we want to help you start feeling better. And I would encourage you to find a way to sleep, to drink water, and to eat something other than junk food. It's almost better. Like if you don't feel like eating, it's almost better to not eat than to eat something that's high in sugar, because the high sugar stuff is going to cause an intense, and you might have some anxiety, and then you're going to crash, and then you'll be like, oh, and you'll be in a lower spot than you were before. So, a lot of times people be like, well, I'm not eating, so I can get away with just eating a candy bar, and that's going to be fine. But all that just made the problem a little bit worse. So if you're going to eat something that's not just junk food, right? Eat something that's fairly decent for you. But anyway, those are some things that you can start with to help you feel better while you're going through this. And I also want you to understand that, like I said before, this is temporary. There is a way out. There's going to be some things to face, but that's, they will come in the time that they will come. And that's okay. Like sometimes we have to build up courage to have some of these critical conversations like Ryan was talking about. We have, if we're going to tell somebody, that, hey, this isn't the way I want to live, we might have to build some courage for that. So, Marie, it's okay. You're going to be okay. I'll tell you, from experience, you'll be better off pursuing what you really want to pursue. And I would explain this at some point too. You might have to formulate the words a certain way, but it's like, I think it was accounting was the thing. It's like, I don't want to do accounting. And, people will try and tell you, well, but you're really good at this and you would be really good at accounting and it makes good money. And so like all this stuff lines up. And so it's what you ought to do. And it's like, no, well, I don't want to do that. I don't like the idea of it. I'm not going to enjoy it. And if I don't enjoy it, I'm not going to work that hard at it and I'm going to fail at it. Or the likelihood is a lot higher. If you go into something you enjoy, there's a lot greater chance that you're going to work harder, you're going to be more successful, you're going to be better for everybody, including them, if you go into that field. If you go into the field that you would want to go into rather than accounting. And I can hear it now. I can hear like the response. Well, you're just a kid. You don't know what you want. And I'd be like, exactly. Why do I want to spend all this money on university when I don't even know what I want? Why do I want to go into all kinds of debt when I don't even know what I want? That seems like a waste. Yeah, it is. So the best time to go to university and pursue something is when you are like, hey, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to pursue. And you go after it. And you're going to work hard. You're going to be successful. But when you don't know, or if you have an inkling and it's not this, you would be better off pursuing the thing that you enjoy, that you're going to work hard at. It's going to be better for everybody. So anyway, that's all. I know we've talked on this topic for a long time. And I thank you so much for this topic. If you want us to talk more, feel free to submit another topic. Feel free to reach out. You can reach out to us on Discord. You can reach out to us through don'tworrywednesday.com. All that stuff. I mean, because as you're going through this, I would love to help in any way possible because I know how much this hurts sometimes. So, Marie, my heart goes out to you, and it's going to be okay. Even though it might be hard for a little bit, you might have some hard decisions to make and some tough conversations to have. It's okay. It's gonna be okay. You're gonna be able to make it. Okay?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
And
that's what I got.
Yeah, I just want to say real quick. You said that you really really love them, and you didn't want to argue with my points, and that's totally fine. You're free to. You don't necessarily have to let them go. You can still help
It's
them,
true.
but one of the ways you need to help them is to free yourself, because otherwise, how can you help them at your fullest when you're not at your fullest,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, when you're a happy camper and you're helping someone, it's much more enjoyed and loved and appreciated than when you're coming in and you're helping people and you're like, yeah, 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 it's fine. Okay, turn over, get out. Okay, all right. And it's like no one wants to be around you. And not saying that you're that kind of person. I'm sure you probably aren't, but it's still important. So I just think that yeah, some topics need to be brought up within your family, and if they aren't, like, you need to. Again, it's really hard. It's a really hard topic, and I I think that what you're doing is really good and awesome. And if they can't see the value in you doing the things that you find valuable and good, um, there might become a point where you just do whatever you decide you want to do, regardless of whether they approve it or not, and then still help them with those activities, anyways. Like, you don't necessarily need to make money how they say you need to make money, and then help them with the money they told you not to make. But anyhow, yeah, I know it's a really hard thing, and it's okay to be scared, and we're just really happy that you reached out. And yeah, like I said, I want to make clear that I understand that you love them and that they're good people, and I'm not saying that you should necessarily abandon them. Just letting you know that the environment you're in is not okay, and it's darkness, and you need to bring it to light, and that's hard, and um, and that's important, and you need to snuff the darkness out where it is. So, but yeah, um, way to go, Marie. Keep it up.
Mm-hmm.
Stay awesome. You're doing great out there, and you've been doing great for a long time, and it makes sense that you're stressed out. So it's okay. Like, where you're at, that's normal. That's natural. That's what I would expect. That's what Joe would expect. That's what any of us would expect. So, um, you can work your way out. And we hope that we've helped. But anyways, feel free to listen to this again. I know we've made a ton of points. We've said a lot of things. And yeah, I know you've had to step away a few times, so feel free to watch it more than once, more than twice, even
Mm-hmm.
if you feel like it's gonna help. But
And you
that's
can
what we
stare
got,
at my bald head all
and you can
you want. That's
stare at
totally
his
fine.
bald head the whole time. Yep. Um. Yeah. So cool. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the topic, and we love you and we appreciate you, and we hope the very best for you, and we hope that you can move forward through this and get over this position you're in. And sorry to everybody else that we took so long on that topic. We hope that you didn't get bored with us or step away. But hey, if you did, we understand. It's a long topic with a lot to get through, so we gave it our all. And again, there's talk for hours on it, I suppose, because there's so much there that we could unpack. But we don't have that kind of time. But we gave you our best. So, anyways, so let's see here.
You see here now, buddy.
Yeah. I'm gonna message someone to see if they're available right now. If they're not, then I'm going to go with this other one.
Okay.
Cool. They are. All right.
So what are we doing?
We're gonna do this person's topic. They've been
Which
waiting
topic is it?
for a little while. And it's it is interior dialogue from Am I a Human? Maybe.
Ah. All right.
So, interior dialogue. That's a good topic.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna throw it up on the screen. There you guys are.
Make sure you throw up on the screen.
I'm gonna. Ooh, no. Oh, I see. That's the same thing. The same sentence, isn't it? Anyways, this is from. This is from. Am I Human? Maybe. And again, it's titled Interior Dialogue. And I will read it. It reads as follows. Good evening, hosts of Don't Worry Wednesday, Ryan and Joe, and Princess for her help. Thank you so much for teaching me a bunch of new stuff about self-awareness in your live streams on February 15th. I really wanted to understand what Ryan meant about the internal dialogue thing, especially the part that a failure in that internal dialogue can unleash itself as we feel/observe in ourselves/others as a bad attitude. Okay. Could you please explain how this dialogue works? Because I understand that this stems from having knowledge of one's state of mind, say their emotions and thoughts, and that a dialogue can help get us into the habit of diagnosing our state regularly. But how does that work? Who's talking to who? When I tried it, no one answered and I thought I was fine, but I only realized a few hours later what was bothering me. I don't know if I'm doing it right. Thankies. That's a new word for me. Thankies, and have a great night. Anonymous. All right. Yeah. Thank you for this topic, Anonymous, and we hope that we can do it justice. We hope that we can walk into this psychology and not just step in with 2 left feet and step all over ourselves. Psychology and understanding this self-talk is a rather lengthy subject, and can I mean, if you want to get really deep and technical about it, it takes a lot of study. And I will say that even the highest level of psychologists find this field incredibly baffling to this day. People who have been studying psychology and philosophy for their whole lives and taken on the efforts of other people's whole lives, and we've been at it for a couple thousand years now, and yet we still feel like, wow, we've made an insane amount of headway, but wow, do we still not understand. Humans are a complex thing, and so to be lost on this subject is totally acceptable. Seeing as the highest paid people in the profession are lost on this subject to some degree. And so what we can do is try to attempt to expound upon our own personal experiences in this field, and to draw upon those that have come before us, and give you the best of the best that we can figure. And so as to take you from where you are to the next step, maybe in this field, to help you better talk with yourself, help you better diagnose your situations, or understand yourself, help you better communicate and create a good attitude out of yourself, and these types of things. Yeah, there's a lot, hopefully not too much to unpack here, but yeah, that's what I got to start with. I'm going to give it over to Joe, and so he can talk about his personal experiences with the interdialogue. And
but they're asking you.
They're not. They said,
I wanted to understand what Ryan meant about internal dialogue.
Well, tell them what I meant, Joe. Tell them what I meant.
I don't know.
My brother used to do that all the time. And I'd say something and my mom would just be like, what does he mean? And my brother would be like, he means this. And then I'd be like, yeah, that's what I said. And he's like, no, that's not what you said, but this is what you meant.
That's not what you said. I know what you meant, because yeah. I'm your brother. And
I'm your brother, and I understand how you speak, and it's weird. And I'm like, fine. Thanks for explaining it.
Thanks for translating to our mother for me.
Yeah. Well, you know, in the what's the tradition? What's the word? Tradition. In the tradition of the show, Joe, take it away.
All right. I love this. You know, I really wanted to understand what Ryan meant about the internal dialogue thing, especially the part that a failure in that internal dialogue can unleash itself as what we observe as a bad attitude. Now, I have a horrible attitude most of the time. You can tell. Because when I talk to myself, it's pretty harsh.
It's pretty
a lot
brutal
of times. Yes. And so there's a lot of fighting in my internal dialogue. But that's part of the process of healing, right? Like these are things that, and it's a good thing that I have a therapist to help me work through this. So Ryan talked about internal dialogue. It goes on whether we're conscious of it or not. It happens all the time. All the time. Now, we might not, it's not even that we say certain things to ourselves, like out loud or in our head or whatever, or write them. Journaling is a great way to get our thoughts out on paper. I've been journaling for a long time. And it's definitely helped me to clarify the things that are going on in my head. And you wouldn't want to read my journals. They're pretty interesting some days. But how internal dialogue works, it goes constantly, whether we are aware of it or not. And our feelings can kind of go along with this inner dialogue, and we don't even know it. Like all of a sudden we just feel bad or sad or angry or whatever, and it's this covert internal dialogue that's like tweaking us a little bit, right? And maybe we'll feel happy, or maybe we'll feel excited, or I guess I kind of zeroed in on the negative feelings there. But sometimes when we are not taking control of the internal dialogue, it can just run rampant, and we'll go wherever it takes us. And environmental things can happen. Somebody can say something or do something, and then we get upset about it. And then that makes us tell all kinds of stories to ourselves internally about why they did this and how bad of a person I must be because of whatever they said or did, and it can all happen and make us feel upset before we even realize what's going on. But the better we can get at understanding, okay, a lot of times, like I have to ask myself, I'll feel a certain way, and then I'll be like, what? Why do I feel this way? Why? Because there has to be a reason why. Now, the reason might be as simple as, well, I feel this way because I think this way about myself, or I think this certain thing about this other person, and so I feel this way because of my thoughts. That might be the simplest answer, but also it doesn't really answer the question, because then it's like, okay, well, what kinds of things am I thinking? And then what drew me to these conclusions? And so a lot of times I will interview myself. And I'll be like, why do I feel this way? Okay, well, what brought me to that conclusion? Okay, well, why? And then a lot of times we can just ask ourselves, why, and then with each answer that comes our way, we can say, okay, well, why did I think that? Why did I come to that conclusion? Why did I do this thing? And the better we get at asking why and drilling down in, we can get to the core of the issue. That's how we can do it when we're thinking of, like what kinds of things motivate me. Why do I want to have a house on a beach? Is it just because I like houses on beaches? Well, maybe that's part of it, but maybe there's another deeper level thing. Like maybe that's like there's a success component to that, or there's a freedom component to that, or there's an adventure component to that. And maybe we start to figure out, maybe I'm an adventurous person, or maybe I'm maybe I'm driven by success, or maybe I'm driven by the need to prove myself, or whatever. And we can dig into these core components of our being by asking why. And so as far as internal dialogue goes for me, a lot of it is asking myself, why? Why am I upset about this? Okay, well, I'm upset because this happened. Okay, well, why did that even make me upset? Well, because it reflected that this that I'm not a very important person. Well, why do I need to be an important person? Well, that's a good question. Maybe I don't. And then sometimes our internal dialogue. Now, here's the thing: we all are important people.
Yeah.
We all have our own. We all have infinite importance. This is hard. I should not be on this show because I feel like I'm lying to myself, right? Because my mentality tells me I'm not an important person, and
You are.
like that. Thank you, Ryan. Anyway, so we go through this questioning ourselves, why, and then we can finally get to the point. Well, okay, do I even need to hold on to this? This thing that's causing me pain, this thing that's making my life miserable right now, this thing that, this thought process that's making me feel bad. Do I need to hold on to this? And a lot of times the answer is no. I don't need to hold on to this. Okay, so what's the remedy? And a lot of times the remedy is, well, I can just focus on something different. I can choose to focus on something different. Sometimes that takes time, a component of a new thought habit. Sometimes we make these decisions in thought without our even knowing it because it's such an ingrained habit in us that we don't even realize we're making the decision. But we just decide. And then we start to think, I wonder why that is. It reminds me of the story of this is kind of cheesy. You might have heard this story or read this story somewhere, but there was a lady who, every time she would cook a ham, she cut the ends off it. Right? What? No, and her husband asked, well, why do you cut the ends off the ham before you cook it? And she's like, I don't know, that's the way my mom always did it, And so they're like, well, that's not a very good reason. There has to be a reason to cut the end. Like, what's the point of it? And so she's like, I don't know, call my mom. So they called her mom, and she said, well, that's the way my mom always did it.
Great.
It's just like, okay, well, did she ever say why she always cut the ends off the ham? Like, I don't know. Like, what was the deal with that? And so then they're like, well, call her up. And, so they call up the mom's mom, the grandma, and they're like, so we're trying to figure this out because we've been cutting the ends off of the ham every time we cook a ham for years. Why do we do that? And she said, oh, the only reason I ever did that was because I had a small pan and it was the only way it would fit in the pan.
Oh, no. That's so stupid. Oh no, we make stupid decisions sometimes, don't we?
We do. It's just like, well, that's just the way I've always done it. Well, that's just the way I've always seen somebody do it. Well, that's, whatever. And so, but then you finally get to the reason why, like, why is it that I'm doing this? And sometimes, like for me, I'll be like, well, why do I think this way? Well, it's because I'm a jerk and I'm selfish.
Yeah.
Well, why do I feel like being a jerk? I'm selfish. Well, I don't feel like being that way. But, it's a knee-jerk response. Okay, so then how do I fix the response? And then you can start having a productive internal dialogue where it's like, okay, I don't have to continue this train of thinking. I can change it. It's not always easy. Sometimes it takes time. Sometimes it takes developing new patterns of thought habit. Sometimes there's all kinds of things that happen. And then you can get yourself on a track where you're like, okay, I'm changing these thoughts. This is going good. I'm going to make it happen. Da, 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 da. And then all of a sudden something happens and the world explodes around you. Or you have some kind of conversation and it just throws everything into disarray. Or, something happens at work or something happens with one of your kids or with your, in your family, with one of your parents, whatever. all kinds of things can come our way and then just throw us off balance. And then you know what happens? We go back to the default. We go back to the autopilot response. We go back to the habit response.
Mm-hmm.
And so then we have to pick ourselves up. We have to touch ourselves up and recognize, okay, this happened. I have to always be reassuring myself, it's okay. You just got off track. You just fell off the wagon, whatever, it's okay. Just get back up. And then I'll sit there, but I don't want to go get back up. I like wallowing around in the mud down here because it feels good. And the mud is nice and cool on my skin. And, I'm like a pig and I like the mud. And nobody's going to throw pearls at me anyway. Ryan was talking about throwing your pearls to swine. And I'm like, yeah, I don't even want their stupid pearls. I just, and then there's this prideful, like I hold on to my bad attitude out of a sense of pride.
You try to justify your bad attitude by continuing your bad attitude until something good happens. Then you can be like, aha, I knew having a bad attitude was a good idea.
Exactly. Yep, I told you. Yep,
yeah,
exactly.
That's human behavior.
Yes, we are humans, and we get into a mess. It's okay. So I apologize to all of my friends who've watched me go through all this craziness.
We love you, though.
Thank you.
And you haven't been that bad.
I love you too.
You're mostly just bad to yourself. We don't see too much of your badness.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Whatever. Anyway. So internal dialogue, yes, it's important. Because what it's going to do is it's going to cause you to look at the deep reasons why you act a certain way, why you respond a certain way. And those things are all going to be keys to determining, okay, is this something that's productive for me? Is this moving me forward or is it not? And then once you start to answer that question, okay, you find out this is not moving me forward. How do I change it? And then sometimes that's the hardest part. Well, I got to change it by letting go of this thing that I've been accustomed to forever and start a new habit. And that can be daunting. That can be hard. And then it's a matter of then following through. But it all started with the internal dialogue, and it all starts with the question, why? Parents get annoyed with their kids sometimes when the kids are like, why? Why is it light out? Well, because the sun's in the sky. Why? Because that's where it is. Why? Because it's actually millions of miles away and we just see it from this thing. And I've tried everything. I've tried, like giving them the simplest responses, but they just still keep asking why. And I've tried really, really complicated responses that they will not understand one bit because my whole goal was to just get them to be like shell shocked and be like, and like walk away. And like, but no, it didn't work. They just come back. Why? And then finally I just started saying, why what? And sometimes you got to ask that to yourself too. Why what? Because sometimes when we answer the question of why, there's like multiple responses in there or multiple things you can kind of catch on. And so then when you're asking why, you have to be specific. Why what? Why which aspect of this thing, right? So anyway, I don't know. I could go on and on and on and get really confusing. But if you can get good at asking yourself why, that's one of the best internal dialogue starters. And if you can use that as a drill to drill into the core of who you are, you're going to discover some stuff. You're going to discover some good. You're going to discover some not so good. And you're going to get to sort through it. And it's okay. Understand, every single one of us as humans, we have good inside us and lack of good inside us. Both. and that's okay. So we try to, if we can discard the not so good and amplify the good, we can move forward. But hopefully that makes sense. I'm going to give it back to Ryan, and maybe he can explain what he meant about the internal dialogue thing.
All right.
I did my best to tell them what you meant, but
I think
hey.
you did a great job. I think,
Right.
I mean, yeah, I mean, you said it, I guess in a short term. Why is it important? And affects our attitude, because our internal dialogue is what decides what we do, what we think about, and how we respond to all those things in the world and in ourselves. And so all of that leads to your attitude. You know, what are you going to do with your life? That's an internal dialogue waiting to happen, right? What am I going to do about the fact that I've got 3 assignments and only time to do 2? Which ones am I going to do? That's an entire internal dialogue. You know, when you walk into the room and it's dark and you can't see, there's an internal dialogue in there going, should probably turn on a light, or do we have a flashlight, or do we have a candle, or you know, what's the reason the light's off in here, or whatever, right? There's thoughts, and just as Joe said, there's always an internal dialogue going on, even if you don't even operate in words. There are people out there who don't speak to themselves in their head with words, but they're still interacting with themselves. But words help us to interact with ourselves. So those people usually get training on how to speak in their heads, so they can have a more distinct dialogue, and so on. But where's my night vision goggles? Exactly. That might be a internal dialogue that you have about night vision goggles. So, anyways, yeah. Joe, I think you did a great job. So thank you.
No, you're welcome. Did I explain to them what you meant?
Yeah, I think you did. I mean, you gave a lot of example, and that's important. Then you said, could you please explain how this dialogue works? Because I understand that it stems from having knowledge of one's state of mind. And I think Joe also explained this pretty well. You know, you ask yourself why, and that does get you that knowledge. And then how do you get into a habit of diagnosing your state regularly? And that's a hard one, because your state isn't always the same. It's moving around. So to get in a habit of looking at it is important. And I think that is generally what's called self-awareness. And self-awareness can be, there's a couple of different ways that we gain that. One of them is through looking at people and watching how they react to us. You know, when you're speaking to someone, generally you're like, especially early on in life, you're looking at someone when you speak to them, and based on the things you say, you can see their face, and they make very tiny, minute, almost unperceivable changes to their face when you're talking to them, and those reactions help guide your own self-awareness. What they do is they're like a mirror back to you as to what's acceptable and what's not, especially in your early ages of life. When you're really little, you pick up on these cues without knowing it, and it teaches you who you're supposed to be in the world, how you're supposed to act, you know, what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. You know, if I start saying something and I get a weird look from them, oh, that's not a topic that we're supposed to talk about, apparently, you know, or things like that, right? And so these things, they train you, and they're a sort of strange self-awareness brought on by the exterior, the world around you, that teaches you about yourself, or teaches you about how you're supposed to act within the world to be happy, or to be at least get by, and so on. So there's a lot that plays into having a habit of having knowledge of one's state. Because in order to have knowledge of one's state, you have to have reference. And that reference comes from outside the world and also your interior world. And the more you look at your interior world, the more you'll have reference to yourself. So you might be at a state where you don't really talk to yourself much. And so then when you go to talk to yourself, it's pretty quiet in there. And you're like, well, I don't have much to, I don't know, what's my state right now? I don't know. What was my state before? I don't know. It's like, well, okay.
Michigan.
Michigan, that's the state I live in. Nice. Anyways, what's my state of mind? And so I think that, yeah, I mean, you have to get into a habit of doing that. And so what's one way of getting into a habit of doing that? Just doing it. Doing it regularly. Doing it throughout the day. But yeah, I think, this is a really big subject, like I said before, starting out with. And how you talk to yourself is really important. It's not just the things you talk about, but how you talk to yourself. Because here's the thing that's really weird about being a human. Who are you? Is a question that we can't really answer. So who are you? We know that there's more to us than just, oh, I'm a human being. Or am I a human being? Maybe. As this person put in their as their name. But there's a lot to being a human, and we know it's not just a name, right? So we ask, who are you? And it's just like, okay, who am I? Well, the weird thing is now I'm talking to myself, asking who I am. Wait, how am I talking to myself? It's like, I have a relationship with myself? And yeah, you do. So it's like, for example, your morals in life, whether you have great self-esteem and so on. It's all about your relationship with yourself in life. So, and that's weird because it's like, well, are we one person or are we two people? Well, what are we one person or are we two people? Because we can have a relationship with ourselves. So that's weird. But then you watch a child play, right? You watch a child play pretend, and they'll act out many different parts of different characters, and you go, where are they grabbing these characters from? Where are they getting these from? And you can see them in the outside world, and they're using words that they learned and so on. But a lot of it comes from within themselves, and it's all these different attributes that they can put on display. It's like you watch a kid, and they'll play dolls, and they'll be like, "This is mommy," and mommy says, "Blah blah 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 blah," and this is the kid going, "No, I don't want to," and then the mom goes, "Yeah, you have to," and then the kid goes, blah 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 blah, back to the mom, and she's and they kind of argue, chit chat, and then all of a sudden the dad comes in and says, "What's going on in here?" And then there's this engagement where,
"What's going on in here?
What's going on in here?" All dads do
like
that, right? Yeah,
that's exactly how dads say it.
Yeah, what's going on in here? So I don't know. It's fascinating, and then you can dream, right? And all of a sudden in your dream, things will happen that you didn't expect. Right? And so the child can surprise themselves. They'll be like, wait, that just came out of my mouth? Like, who was that character? And why were they so mean? And how could someone be so mean? Like, that was cruel, right? And how did I come up with that? Where did that come from? Like, that didn't get introduced to me. I didn't watch that in a movie. Where did that come from? And then you have a dream, and you dream about things. It's like, you have characters in your dreams, and your characters do things that you don't expect. It's like, how does that happen? And you should expect it. It's your mind coming up with it, right? And so it's a fascinating subject. And my point is having a dialogue with yourself. Keeping all of that in mind, right? Having a dialogue with yourself is incredibly important and incredibly doable, because you will surprise yourself. When you have a dialogue with yourself, you will surprise yourself, and you will learn about yourself. What's interesting is, as being a human being, we aren't self-knowing by nature. It's really weird. We aren't self-knowing. Like, we exist as a human being, and we learn who we are while being. right? We go out into the world and we start acting in the world and we start doing things and we learn who we are. We don't come into the world going, okay, I know that I like music. I know that I like spaghetti and I don't like chicken, right? Like, weird. But you don't come into the world knowing those things. You discover those things about you. And they're already there before you knew it.
I knew I hated mushrooms from the beginning of my existence.
Then there's that too. You can turn yourself into something by thinking something is true and going along with it. And that's weird. And that's why interior dialogue is really important too, because you can turn yourself into something that you don't want to be by convincing yourself of a truth that isn't true. So you really need to examine yourself. Yeah. Mushrooms especially. One of the most.
I'm not examining the mushrooms.
Yeah, mushrooms. Examine yourself about the mushrooms. You could be lying to yourself. No, Joe just talked to me. Just told us the other day. It was like yesterday. I said there's so many different kinds of mushrooms with so many different kinds of tastes, and you said there was a mushroom chanterelle that was on your pizza and you didn't mind it. Yeah. So it's something that we learn, and then they change on us. Our tastes change. We could like something and then learn to not like it, or not like it and come to like it. Music especially, right? Our musical tastes can change. We don't listen to one song forever. We move from song to song, and we might listen to the same song over and over and over, but eventually we move on to something new, and it's fresh, it's refreshing and enjoyable. So anyhow, my point is, again, interior dialogue is really important, and it's important to know that you don't know who you are. You don't. You have to discover that along with everybody else. And that's an amazing and beautiful thing. I love that we aren't put into this world knowing every facet of ourselves. I love that it's an adventure to figure out who we are. And I love that it's demanding. It requires much of us to learn and figure out who we are. We have to go on the adventure of life. And through it, we learn about ourselves, who we are. And the more that's demanded of us in our life, the greater the call, the more we really dig down into life and get deep with it. And sometimes that means being depressed, and sometimes that means being incredibly joyful. But it's through those moments that we discover ourselves. And so we live a life of discovery, of self-discovery, and that's an amazing thing. But it takes time to unpack that. And you got to make time. You have to make time to unpack that, or you never will. And you might never fully discover yourself and discover where you're wrong, where your thinking is wrong. And you just live a life where you are unable to solve yourself, unable to solve your problems. And so you asked about this, and my recommendation is to make time where you are alone in silence. Where you're alone in silence. And there's a beautiful thing, and I don't know if you're religious, anonymous at all, but prayer is best. I can't say where prayer is best done, but prayer is a really great way to enter into that interior dialogue. Because through prayer, we're talking with God, but we're talking with ourselves and navigating ourselves with God. And I think that it puts a spin on our own perception of who we are, because we see ourselves from something higher, and that casts down onto us with a sense of goodness, and that we're meant to be here and we have a purpose. And then that sort of brings our mind to start unraveling ourselves and figuring ourselves out. Because when we don't have a lens or a point of view to look through, or we pick a lens that's not very good to look through, that interior dialogue might not be very helpful. It might not move us forward in the ways that we want to move forward. So it's important to I don't know if you're a praying person or not. It's important to pick your lens through which you look at your life. It's important to pick your lens through which you look at yourself, so that you can proceed with your interior dialogue in a way that's helpful and forms a good relationship. Because you do have a relationship with yourself. You cannot like yourself, and you can like yourself, and you can like yourself a little too much. You can become attached to yourself and clingy, and you can be attached to yourself and clingy and hate yourself at the same time.
Mm,
You can
that's
have,
that's quite a combo.
yeah, that's a combo. It's
That's
a
called
wombo
a
combo.
combo package.
Yeah. Uh-huh. And so there's all sorts of different states of relationship you can be in with yourself. As many as there are, you can be in it. And you can be both have a low self-esteem and have an incredibly high self-esteem at the same time inside your brain. And have it's a great place. It's a great place to enter into, because you really need to work those things out. And if you're not happy with yourself, if you don't like yourself, then how can you manage your attitude when you can't even manage the relationship with yourself? It's like you can pretend for a while, but that's not your real attitude. If you want to be able to control your attitude, control your emotions to some degree, you need to be able to talk to yourself and talk it out. And if you don't like yourself and you don't want to enter into that discussion with yourself, because the last thing you want to have anything to do with is yourself, that person is rough, how are you going to have an influence on that person? How are you going to decide, okay, this is the route, this is the direction I want to take, and then actually take it when you don't have any influence over yourself, right? You need to have influence over yourself. And the influence, you don't want it to be an oppressive influence. We just talked about that in the last topic. You don't want that influence to be oppressive, and it's like, well, I have to do it because I said so, and so on. That's okay, that's fine, but I mean, that's one kind of relationship, and it does work for a while, but it doesn't work out in the long run. So what does it look like? What does a good interior dialogue look like? And I say, prayer is one, hopefully, but beyond that, looking at yourself and saying, like, when you mess up, right, when you make a mistake, you talk to yourself about that. You talk to yourself as in, hey, that sucked, sorry that happened, we need to try better, let's figure out how we can do that, because I respect you. I know that we can do this. Done other things. And I'm the only one that can change it. Right? And we're good for doing so. Can't get everything right all the time. But hey, that's life. And that's important. To talk like that to yourself. And then sometimes it's not going to look like that. Maybe, maybe it's like, well, what kind of food do I want to eat? It's like, well, that could be healthy. It could be a healthy conversation with yourself. It's like, hey, what kind of food do you like? I don't know, what kind of food do I like? Well, and also, do I want to eat something healthy or just something that's enjoyable? Like, that's an important question too. So it's like, okay, well, I want something enjoyable. Doesn't have to be healthy. Well, it's like, well, why? Shouldn't it be healthy at least? It's like, okay, fine. We'll eat something healthy. I'll feel better for it, right? It's like, yeah, good. All right, good choice. All right. And so you're talking to yourself from like you know what's best. And then you talk to yourself through it. Like, hey, come on, let's just get the whole body on board with this. This is a good idea, right? And you're friends with the person, and you discuss things openly. and you recognize it's a safe place. It's not a dangerous place to be. It's a safe place to be, and it's the place that's really helpful to you. And you got to encourage yourself and be like, sometimes you have to. Sometimes you have to encourage yourself. It's like, let's get out there and let's do this. We got this. We got this. It's like, sometimes you have to encourage yourself. And that can be weird at first if you've never done that before. But, you know, sometimes you have to sit there and repeat back to yourself, like, hey, remember that time I did this? That was awesome. Let's do another awesome thing. Come on. That's going to be awesome. Let's do it. And then you go out there and you have a good attitude about it because someone encouraged you. And that person that encouraged you is yourself. And that person believes in you. And that person is the only one that has any control over you anyways. So that's pretty important. Not that you have full control of yourself.
Ultimately has control. We give our control to other people.
Fair. And
from time to time.
Yeah. And ultimately has control doesn't mean ultimately has ultimate control, because we don't have ultimate control over ourselves. There are things that we just do and we're like, I didn't control that.
Yeah, like coming into being, I didn't have any control over that.
Right. That's for sure. Mm-hmm. And there's so much we don't know about ourselves. There's so much discovery to be had, so we don't control those things, right? They're just there, and then we learn about them, and then we decide if we want to keep them that way, right? Or we can't just make a decision on it. It just is. Like, it's like, I can't help that I like this kind of music over the other kind. It's just what it is. I don't know why. And then it's just like, okay, well, that's fine. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But yeah. So anyways, I hope that was enlightening and helpful and not too boring for anybody, or mundane or just obvious. But yeah, what I would say is everybody needs to spend some silent, just, you're not doing anything and it's silent and you don't have music playing in the background. You don't have, I mean, sure, maybe some white noise, whatever, who cares? But like, silent, bored time.
Don't even twiddle your thumbs.
You can pace, you can twiddle your thumbs.
What?
You're allowed to. But you have to have that. Basically, no outside entertainment. You're just stuck with yourself. And then open that dialogue and be nice. Be nice to yourself. It's a human being in there.
I hate that guy, though.
He's valuable. And if you hate him, that's all the more reason to be nice to him, because you gotta love your enemies into submission and make sure they love you back. No, you gotta love your enemies, but also, like, no, really, you should want what's best for you, and a good relationship is important for that. Because it's hard to listen to yourself and figure out what's best for you and abide by those things if you don't want to listen to yourself. So we are an anomaly. It's hard to understand what we're dealing with in here. I think the brain is more akin to a container than it is a source of something that is knowledgeable. In fact, I mean, there's records of people doing transplants, and they do a lung transplant, and that person all of a sudden finds themselves liking or attracted to a thing that they never, ever considered. And it so happens that that person who had that lung before them, that was their favorite thing to do, and they did it for a good slice of their life. And it's like, well, that doesn't make any sense. That's not their brain, and it's also, why is their information stored in their lung? And it's like, well, the body is weird, and we're still figuring it out. And it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. And you're pretty cool. And you're worth studying, because there's a lot there, and it's really good. It's like the greatest book you'll ever read. But the problem is, it's hard to read it. And that's really what are the greatest books in life, are the ones that are really hard to read, because there's so much packed in them. And you can read them over and over and learn new things. You thought you already read the book, you already know everything. You read it again, you're like, oh, there was something in here I missed. And every time you read it, you're like, I missed a lot. How did I pass over this part? That would have been awesome to hear like 5 years ago. How come I didn't see it? And it's like, well, that's a good book. And you're like that. And so definitely spend time in silence. And if you're bored, great. Embrace it. Call it a good thing. And dig in until you find yourself absolutely entertained by the fact that you can learn about you by talking to you. There's a great, I think he wrote a book, very wise man. I can't remember it. Joe might know the quote that relates to this. He said the day he stopped ever being bored again was the day that he learned he could interact with himself or talk to himself and enter into that dialogue. Learn from himself. What was that quote?
It was Jim Rohn. Yeah. He stopped being bored the day he learned he could feast on his own intellect.
There you go. That's a great way to put it. Yeah. So if you're bored when there's silence, start to feast upon your own intellect. And it's one of those meals that the more you dig in, the more you find there's more to enjoy. And you can only take so much at a time, right? But the more you dig in, eventually, if you feast on it in a joyful way, in a way that's a celebration, in a way that's it's like, there's good stuff here. Well, you're not going to be bored when you go into that interior dialogue anymore. And, it's pretty important. Joe listed out quite a few reasons why. So anyways, that's what I got on it. I hope that's helpful. I hope that's useful to anyone. I hope that everyone here is entering into that interior dialogue, and you are, whether you want to or not. It's just, are you navigating it, or are you just letting it be? And it's important to navigate it. It's important for there to be someone in the driver's seat, not just someone sitting there nagging at you or saying things and you just cooperating. It has to be a relationship where both parties are involved. You and you. You and yourself, you and your weird part. And so I think it's a good topic, and one we could probably talk about all day. I mean, there's so many facets of it, but
all day long. We get a lot of topics like this we could talk about for a long time.
Yeah, I'm gonna stop myself there though, before I get too nerdy and go into really wild things like the interior castle, or mimeticism. If you don't know what mimeticism is or what it means to be mimetic, you are, and so is everybody else. It's that nature of you that says, "Oh, I want this because the other child wanted it." It's like you learn what you want, not because you want it and it's a part of you, but because you learn what you want from what other people want. It's a natural state of being.
That is very true.
Scapegoating. You know about scapegoating? When you oh my gosh. It's like, hey, everybody, let's unite and attack this one person so we can all like just be happy and get along until that person is dead. It's like, that is a reality that people live out their whole lives doing, and they don't realize it. It's like, that requires an interior dialogue to separate yourself from that crisis that you're in, because you shouldn't have to have an enemy in order to get along with someone. That's horrible, but most people live their lives there. So there's so much to this topic.
I didn't mean to chuckle at when you talked about scapegoating, but all I could think about was you said scapegoating, and I was like, oh, like goatscaping. Is that like landscaping? You're doing it to a goat.
Great. That's great. Oh, there's a bit of fur right there.
Yes,
it's all over the place.
Yes. So we talked a little bit about, this is like Ryan was talking about. This is a great big subject, but I did think of one other question you can ask yourself other than why. And this one can be really a tough one to ask, but very important. And it is, how's that working? and it's not meant to be in a sarcastic tone. Like, you have people say, how's that working out for you? Like, because you're supposed to tell them, oh, no, it works like terrible. And so you're supposed to tell me what I'm supposed to do, Mr. Advice Person.
No, they never do.
Want to tell me about how smart you are. So, because anytime I've ever been asked that question, well, how's that working out for you? It's always followed up with, well, let me tell you what I'm going to tell you what to do because I know better. And I'm like, maybe you don't. Maybe you don't see the whole picture. And sometimes we don't even see the whole picture. That's why a therapist can help. That's why friends can be helpful. But it is helpful to ask yourself, how is this working for me? Like this line of thinking, this line of activity, this line of whatever that I'm asking, why am I doing this? Okay, well, okay. Sometimes it's a great first question. Okay, I notice I'm like this. How is that working? It's terrible. Okay. Well, then let's do some more digging. Why? And we can ask why for a little while and get to another core thing. And we can be like, oh, well, okay, so it's this way because I'm like this. Well, how is that working? It's not working very good. Or it's working great. Just everybody around me is a jerk.
That can be an answer sometimes.
It's very true. Sometimes you're right. Sometimes there is people around you that are causing problems. That can be the case, right? But at the same time, like I don't.
It's best to take as much responsibility as is owed to you, and don't take more.
That's true.
Don't take less.
Right, and don't allow other people to shove theirs onto you if somebody else is responsible for something. Maybe they need to be responsible for it. But at any rate, so we can ask these questions and we can get to the root of the problem and we can get to a root of how we operate in ourselves that then lends itself to this certain activities or this certain way of thinking or this certain life condition we may find ourselves in at any given point in time, and we can kind of ask, and then it's like, okay, well, what do I need to do to change? So why? How is it working? And then what do I need to do in order to change? And sometimes we don't know what it is we need to do. But I will say that the things we are doing that are wrong, a lot of times I've noticed the simple way to change it is to do the opposite. So I operate this way. I think this way. Okay, well, I operate, I'm angry at this person because what they're doing is frustrating me. Okay, so what can I do that's different? How's that working? Well, it's not working out at all because I just get upset and then I get flustered and blah, 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 right? And whatever. So what can I do to change? And sometimes it's as simple as, well, the reason this is a problem is because I'm thinking wrong. I'm letting things get to me that shouldn't get to me.
Oh yeah, I've been there a lot. That's important. So when you make that realization.
Like, what does this even matter? Like, why is this getting to me? Like,
yeah, totally.
And then, so I'm getting upset when these things happen. Why is this a problem? Well, it shouldn't really be a problem. Okay, so what do I need to do to fix it? Well, instead of being mad at this person, how about be nice to this person? How about love them? How about instead of being angry and full of hatred, how about love them? And I know I know what you're gonna do, Ryan. You're gonna use this against me. You're gonna use my own advice against me.
I wasn't gonna say that.
Joe, you should just love yourself then.
Okay, I wasn't even gonna say that. I didn't even think about that. But you're right, Joe. That's a good idea. Hey, you didn't hear it from me.
I did hear it from you.
You heard it from me in your head because I said it in your head.
It was your face and your voice that said it in my head.
Isn't that amazing that happens? Isn't that amazing that we can do it? It's like when I gave you that advice from Kyle, even though Kyle wasn't there to say it.
I know. It's great. Our minds are a crazy place, for sure. and we don't understand it. And we're trying to understand it. And there are people that maybe understand it a little bit better, but even then, new stuff comes out all the time and we figure out we were wrong about stuff, which is why it's like everybody talks about, hey, well, according to science, this. And I'm like, okay, great. You do realize that according to science, back in the early 1900s, it was okay to have heroin in the Sears catalog.
Wow. That's great.
And it was called the Housewife's Helper.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yep. There was a big selling point back in the 1940s and 50s or whatever. Camel cigarettes, the most smoked brand by doctors. According to science, it was okay.
Yeah.
We come to find, we come to find out all kinds of stuff, right? Science used to say it was good to put butter on burns.
That doesn't even make sense.
All kinds of stuff. Well, according to science, this. Okay, that's great. According to the best knowledge we have in science at this point in time, without any further exploration, this is what science says. Yes. Good. Now that we have all these caveats and disclaimers and qualifiers on it, it works. But the truth of the matter is 10 years from now, science is going to come up with some new discovery, and it's going to change a bunch of the stuff that science says now. I've watched it happen so many times in my short lifespan. So
asbestos,
anyway.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Good stuff right there.
Yeah. Asbestos. Good stuff. What? Rub it all over your face. Don't do that.
It'll make your skin grow nonstop forever. It's called cancer.
Yep. We used to think in Michigan that it was a good idea to use lead pipes for water. And it was fine. It was fine in Flint, Michigan until they changed the water source, and then the water started to erode the lead in these lead pipes, and then it was getting into everybody's water, and so people were drinking lead, and they were having all kinds of health problems. But back in the day, lead was just fine to use. No. It's always been bad. We just didn't have the discovery yet, right? So there's no telling what's going to be discovered in the next 10 years. Mm-hmm. You might discover all kinds of craziness about yourself. I'm discovering all kinds of weirdness. Crazy. So anyway.
Fantastic.
That's all I got. I don't know. I just felt like I needed to go on a little bit of a rant. And,
no, that's totally good.
Thank you guys for being here.
Thanks for being here for my rant. I feel better now. You can leave. No. But yeah, lead immune. That's right. Well, anyways, that's our Don't Worry Wednesday for the day, and the week, I guess, because we only have it once a week, not every day. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here and staying late. Obviously, we went half an hour over. We've been doing that quite a lot lately, and again, we only got to do topics. So you guys have been asking.
I know.
You guys have been asking hard ones.
But it's good though.
It's good.
I'm glad we're doing it.
Yeah.
I'm glad we're taking the time to go through it and expound, because some of these things are complex, and you gotta take into account a bunch of different things. And yeah.
Yeah. So
Ash, don't drink soap.
No plastic, get banned. Yeah. Yeah. Don't.
Never, because plastics is such a huge industry.
Yeah. Please don't drink.
It's
soap.
like sugar.
It's like sugar. Yeah, it'll never die. It's just too big of
sugar should be banned.
I like sugar,
I know.
It's good for you.
It's just as addictive
amounts
in your brain as cocaine.
Yeah, but it doesn't have
the same set of stuff fires up in your brain as when you use cocaine.
Really?
Use sugar.
Obviously not as intense, but yeah, wow. Interesting.
Well, you're not concentrating, grinding up, and snorting sugar.
Yeah, I don't try to do that.
I mean, I guess you could. I would not do. I would say like the don't drink soap thing. Don't snort sugar.
Don't grind.
Don't snort anything. Actually,
yeah,
don't snort.
Except for air. You can snort air, but be careful. Be mindful of your air snort. When you laugh,
it's been disproven Was it disproven? And was it the sugar thing? It's been disproven that snorting sugar is bad for you? Sorry.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah, remember that time period when Don't Worry Wednesday was 3 times a week? Oh my gosh, I forgot about that.
I will contest that through experimenting with my children and with my late father-in-law. Sugar high is a drug-like reaction. Because I watch them, and I watch the crash too, and that's like a bad crash.
Yeah, but that's it. I don't know. We don't all get that, but I get it. I guess we don't all eat that much sugar though either.
Probably depends on your level of addiction. There is that to take into consideration.
Yeah,
because it is an addictive substance too.
Addiction and tolerance. I don't know. I'm not a scientist in this field. I don't know anything when it comes to this subject, so I'm not gonna make any statements. I'm gonna side on this. I'm gonna side on the side of, I don't know. That's where I belong. I don't know.
Yeah. Hey, but either way, who knows what's gonna come out next? What kind of discovery are we gonna make? You never know. We're gonna discover that Don't Worry Wednesday was the best thing that ever happened to the world.
Wow. Dang.
Except for Ryan himself. That was the actual best thing that happened to the world.
No, because then there was Don't Worry Wednesday, and that was the best thing. Don't Fret Friday and Don't Muddle Monday. Those are good. Those were good shows.
Yeah.
I miss those. That'd be cool to show them again. But Don't Freak Friday. Yeah. Don't freak out.
Here you go, Mianglios. There's that.
Mianglios.
And then the invite to the Discord server. There it is, I think.
Best thing since sliced bread.
Best thing since canned bread.
I think I've had canned bread before.
You have. I was there.
Yeah.
We tried it for the first time together. Bread in a can.
That's right. It was good. Had nothing wrong with it.
Weird.
It was weird. It was fine. I remember that. Yep. Canned bread. Yeah, I was like, what? That's a
bread
thing?
In a can.
Yep.
I think I have a can of it upstairs.
Do you really? Nice.
I think so.
Yeah. It's a real thing. It's a real product. Which didn't we try that? Did we try that in a hotel?
Yes, we did.
All right, there you go.
I think we even heated it. We heated it in the little hotel microwave.
Put some
butter on it. It was like really good.
Yeah. Everything's good with butter. Especially what burns?
Wait. Riku says as a German that's the most offensive thing I've heard this month. What, that bread comes in a can?
Canned bread. Yeah, actually, I don't know. What might be more offensive is that we microwaved it. You can't microwave bread.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, Squishmallows in the background, a bunch of them. 1, 2, and 3. And then a bunch of stars that August gave me. He's in the chat, maybe. And then, yep. Criminal Idol plush, a Zergling, and It's Not Like I Like You, girl. Yeah, all sorts of different stuff. Fun. Did you microwave explode? Yeah, when you microwave bread, the microwave explodes. No, guys.
You gotta take the bread out of the can first.
Yeah. Oh, they're thinking we microwaved the can?
Yeah, you gotta you gotta not microwave the can.
Yeah. Yeah, Ash, there is a plush. We haven't decided to sell them yet, but we have them, and we are going to sell them at some point. But
yep, we'll be selling them.
Anyhow,
we gotta get our store back up and stuff. But yeah. Anyway,
thank you guys so much for joining us on our extended version of Don't Worry Wednesday. We hope you've enjoyed yourself. We hope you love yourself. We hope you love each other. And we hope you love the world you live in, because the way you look at the world is the way you feel living inside of it. So it's pretty important. Bob on it, so you can love the world you live in.
Box plush win, Ryan.
Oh yeah, I know. We need that box plush. We need that box plush.
We need the box plush. We need the box plush, and we need the Ryan shower curtain. Those are the two things we still need.
Yeah. A Ryan plushie. Detective plushie is about as close as you're going to get at the moment. But
basically, the Ryan plushie is the detective.
You can have the real deal. I'll sell you that. Instead of a Ryan plushie, I'll give you myself. You can carry me into your bed. How's that sound? And
oh my.
Cuddle on me all night. Sounds
great,
hey.
Hey, now.
All right.
Easy does it. Joe plushie. That all you need to do for a Joe plushie is you just need to get one of those cheap dolls at the dollar store, and they've got this shiny bald head.
That's
that's all you need to do.
You just need a One Punch Man.
You just need a One Punch Man.
Yeah,
exactly.
There you go. That's Joe.
Yeah, I would agree. We need a princess plush for sure. Princess. Yeah. That would be a beautiful plush. My Indeed. Plush.
Yeah. I'd like one. Gwent. Joe, you underestimate my love for you. Don't overestimate it, though.
One caveat: don't overestimate it either.
Don't ever not like that. No. All right. Anyways, thank you guys. We love you all. We hope you have a wonderful rest of your week and you enjoy yourself. We will see you next time on Don't Worry Wednesday. That was a weird way to end that sentence. Love you guys. Bye. Peace. Ending screen. Go.